Welcome to the Dairy News and Views podcast, a production of the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. Our podcast covers current educational, research, and industry tools available for your operation to manage healthy cows and calves while producing the highest quality dairy products.
Bienvenidos a Viernes Español, right?
Así es.
Welcome to Spanish Fridays. And I'm going to ask you for validation every time I say bienvenidos a Viernes Español.
Yeah.
Welcome to Spanish Fridays with the Dairy News and Views from Iowa State University. I'm your host for today, Gail Carpenter. We're doing a special series on all things Spanish with our guest, Miguel Rangel. He's the owner of Optimum Dairy Consulting. In our Spanish Fridays episodes, we're talking about dairy things, and we're talking about them Gail's trying to pick up some Spanish along the way. So again, I have very little Spanish background, but I'm trying to practice and trying to get better, and I'm picking up a few hints and tricks. So welcome, Miguel. Thank you for not judging me. Thank you for being my partner in this.
You are welcome.
In our previous episode, we talked a little bit about some prepositions, some common prepositions. The best one, in my opinion, is en.
Yes, it is.
Which is a very useful and
versatile.
Yes. Very versatile preposition. It can mean in, on, or at, depending on the context. So we talk also about para, which is generally used for, although Miguel did throw me for a loop and said it can also por is also occasionally used if you do it instead of somebody, if you substitute, or if you're doing somebody a favor. I did it for you, por. With is con. By is also por. Meet me by the door. That would be por. To is a, just the letter A.
Just the letter A, yes.
Yes.
Direction.
And then from and of are both de. And then about is, I wrote it down and I forgot how to pronounce it.
Acerca.
Acerca. Yes.
Acerca. Yeah.
It's not one that I use as often. And so I don't have as many opportunities to practice it. And I don't remember. I'm sure I learned it in Spanish 1, but I don't remember it.
Probably, but like I said, prepositions is a complex topic. It's not that easy. So don't worry if, like I said, anytime you hear those prepositions, if you use kind of what we're talking here, you will be fine. Like the in, right? The keys, or I see you in maternity.
Yeah.
Te veo en maternidad. The keys are on the tables. Las llaves están en la mesa.
Yeah.
The keys are in the drawer. That's another one, right? In, which means inside. In Spanish, you can say están en el cajón, in the drawer. Inside would be dentro. Don't worry, just say in. It's okay.
We're gonna start with baby steps.
yeah. Like I said, the in, the en, that saves you a lot of headache. The other one, like we said, at, right? Well, we already said it's en. And for, right? Para. This is for you. I did it for you, right? Or I use this disinfectant, right? I use this product to disinfect, para desinfectar. So a few variations there. Another one is acerca, which is that one. It's the only option you have is acerca, about. Let's talk about mastitis. Vamos a hablar acerca de mastitis. Okay.
And I think that's a great segue. Do you want to talk about mastitis?
Let's do that.
Acerca de mastitis? Yeah.
Acerca de.
Last episode, we talked about la rutina de ordeño, the milking routine. And ordeño is a new term that I learned. It just means milking. So I can say la rutina de ordeño, like I just did, milking routine. I can talk about la sala de ordeño, which is the milking parlor. I can talk about milking machines. So that would be, how would I say milking machine? Um,
Unidades de ordeño, máquinas de ordeño.
La máquina de ordeño, yes. Which is milking machine, yep.
Milking machine.
And
Yes.
sometimes you'll notice that I pause everybody. But it's because I'm writing these
That's a
down. I've
lot of
got a
editing.
yeah. I have stacks of paper on my desk that are just all the vocabulary words that I need to start practicing more.
Yeah.
And so I keep them right here in front of me so that they're front of mind and I can kind of in my head practice them sometimes, even if I'm not speaking Spanish to somebody. I've got them to think about. So we talked about in our previous episode again. We started talking about ordeño, milking. We've been talking about mastitis, which is mastitis. And in the importance of a good milking routine, we talked about the importance of training and the impact that a training program can have. And a lot of times, when we kind of discussion about parlors and discussion about milking often leads straight into talking about mastitis. And so we have in our show notes a link to an Alechero article about called Mastitis 101. And so if you're interested in more information about what we're talking about, you can feel free to check that out. It has this is cheating for me maybe, but it has an English and a Spanish translation. So you can see the Spanish translation first, and then you can see what the English translation is. I should also plug, we have on our extension.iastate.edu/dairy team website, we have some bilingual milker training, some online self-paced training modules in Spanish that we're very proud of. I think they're excellent resources in Spanish. We did those in collaboration with Jorge Delgado, and Miguel also helped put some of those together. You helped us get the cows and move around and all of the logistics to make sure that got done. So that is under resources at the top of the page on our Extension Dairy Team website. But while we're talking about mastitis, I usually, when I'm teaching about mastitis or talking to students or talking to employees or whoever else about mastitis, I think it's helpful to start with a little bit of discussion about like mastitis, terms to describe mastitis, like very broad terms that we would use to kind of classify or describe the mastitis that we're dealing with. And so generally what I'm doing is I break it down into, is it environmental or contagious? Is it acute or chronic? Is it clinical or subclinical? Those are some general terms that we can use to describe a case of mastitis or classify a case of mastitis. So contagious versus environmental. I think those terms can get a little bit confusing sometimes because you can catch a bacteria from your environment. So I don't know if contagious is I'm not a veterinarian, or any sort of medical professional. In my head, contagious doesn't really make sense as a term there, but contagious is generally when it's spread from cow to cow and not from the environment to a cow, right? And then environmental is it's spread from the environment to the cow. And then acute versus chronic is referring to the duration of the disease. So acute is going to be shorter and chronic is going to be longer. And then clinical and subclinical. Clinical, you see symptoms. Subclinical, you do not see symptoms. So when I'm talking about mastitis 101, as a nutritionist and not a veterinarian, I should clarify again. Those are kind of where I start. So how would I use those terms in Spanish? Let's start with contagious versus environmental.
But for example, contagious is contagiosa, right? Environmental is ambiental. And there is, I mean, if you have more terms, like for example, acute, it's aguda. Subclinical is subclínica. And clinical is clínica. And chronic is crónica. right? So that's the easy part about those is because a lot of those terms are actually Greek terms. So that's why
Okay.
it's the same in every language, or yeah, obviously Spanish, English in this case. But I guess one thing that I want you to keep on in mind is that a lot of times when you talk to the milkers, I mean, these terms are very good, especially when you are working with your veterinarian, maybe working with your consultants or people who are very well versed on this topic.
Hmm.
But for a lot of the milkers or even the people milking or in charge, they don't make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Because you all need to have a background to understand what environmental bacteria is or contagious,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for them, all these things may be like, that doesn't make any difference to me. The cow looks bad. Or they could say, when you milk a cow, and you see clumps,
Hmm.
we call that grumos, right? Grumos. So, for example, if you have a cow, most like with mastitis, employees not all the time are going to be able to tell you, oh, that's a subclinical case of
Hmm.
mastitis. They wouldn't know. So sometimes you can use numbers just to say number one, number two, number three. One is just a few clumps of milk. The milk is still normal. The cow looks okay. Number two would be definitely the quarter looks kind of swollen. There is mastitis and quite a few flakes, chunks of milk sometimes. And well, level three, which is, a cow that is if it is severe, you will see sometimes the milk is not, you don't even see milk. It's completely watery.
Yeah.
And that's what the employees
Yeah.
understand as far as degrees. That's what they can relate to.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. Even I tend to throw these terms around because I used to teach lactation, right? So I throw
Yeah.
these terms around a lot. But then I would go out to the farm and talk to students or employees at the farm and throw the same terms around, and they don't always mean, especially some of these terms. I think people tend to get confused a little bit, like acute and clinical. I think people always think of acute as severe. And acute can be severe, but it refers to the duration, right? If it's short or if it's chronic or long, right? So you can be, but I think people kind of say, well, subclinical and chronic are the same thing. Well, no, not really. You can be chronic and clinical.
Mm. Yeah.
And so I like that idea of the degrees. I think it simplifies a lot of things, right? And um, so grumos, you said, is the term for clumps, right?
Grumos.
Yeah.
Most of the people will all say grumos.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Would you
the
ever
other
say
things,
flakes, or would you just say clumps? Like we'll
mm,
talk about flaky or clumpy milk, right? Like
I would say in English, I use the term flakes more. In Spanish, you say, I would say grumo most of the
grumo. Yeah.
time, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Another thing before I forget, which is, for example, with employees, especially like I said, a lot of them they don't have experience milking cows ever. So when they are introduced to the milking parlor, what it's important is for them to identify what they see. That's why we do the force stripping, right? And
mhm.
what they see. Because yes, there are times where I have seen it. Employees think, when you dry a cow, you use a sealer.
Yeah.
So when the fresh cow comes, you need to get the sealer. And sometimes they think that's mastitis, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this cow has mastitis. But that's part of the training that goes along. And one training is not going to encompass every single circumstance that you
Right.
will find daily. You
Yes.
get good at it by doing it every day. Eventually, after years, you have seen a lot. But
Yeah.
these employees sometimes they don't have that advantage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even with this podcast series, we're not spending a whole episode and talking
Mhm.
about everything that deals with mastitis and milking routine, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
and we both have a general understanding of mastitis and milking routines, and a lot of our listeners do. So we're assuming a lot of knowledge already, right? And um if with a new employee, you might not have as much experience and might have to start with kind of the basics
Exactly.
about why you're doing what you're doing. We spent some time
Mhm.
talking about that in our previous episode as well. So I like that grumos. I like that whole 1, 2, 3 system as well. To kind of, I feel like you can overcomplicate things with numbers, right? Like, and I'm fully self-aware. I'm a scientist, and scientists love to overcomplicate things, right? So, so it is very possible to take a scale or a rubric or whatever else and
Uh-huh.
just completely overcomplicate it. But keeping it simple, like a 1, 2, 3, and it's not a yes or no. And I think that kind of helps. Like if you treat, if you just saying like, does this cow have mastitis or not? That might not be a helpful way of presenting that because like, okay, if she's got watery milk, we're gonna treat that with a lot more like concern than we would like, oh, she's got a couple flakes, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Like
like that idea of having
for
like
for ex
a
yes,
score.
like having just for example, if you have an employee who he is busy milking, he doesn't
Mhm.
have the time to find a cow that is sick and treat the cow right away. But if he found abnormal milk, he can write it down on the board because usually that's what I like, or flag the cow
Mhm.
and tell whoever is the person in charge, hey, I found these cows in this pen, they abnormal milk, they have been flagged or the numbers are here, and that person can go and decide
Yeah.
what needs to be done with those animals. But the milker is doing his job as far as milk is abnormal, you decide what needs to be done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And one of the things you mentioned in our last episode too was the whole idea of a crew leader, and having like a point person who's in charge of collecting that information or kind of like doing actions with that information, right? And that whole idea of or at least assigning like it's really easy just to be like, well, I flagged her. Nobody else knew about it, but there's this new cow with like spray paint or whatever on her, and in like a 5,000 cow dairy, that's not going to be very helpful, right? And so having
yes,
like assigned like this is the person who has to do X action once this happens,
exactly.
is helpful with that whole communication of okay, this
Uh-huh.
is the cow that we have to check out and maybe do more investigation on.
Because
So,
there have been cases where let's say the person that is in charge is going to act upon what he sees. Okay, this
mhm.
cow has mastitis. I'm gonna treat the cow. Maybe the cow is a DMB cow, right?
Yeah,
And he already treated the cow, right? That in that circumstance, maybe the treatment was not warranted if the production was low. So there are a lot of things, but definitely that is how you organize your team, right?
yeah,
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's how you organize your team, but that something is done in a timely manner.
yeah. I didn't write down, sorry to like go back 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long. I did not write down anything for acute, chronic, clinical, subclinical. They all sounded pretty close to what we were talking about, but I got to fill in my vocab sheet that I made for myself. So acute. What would we
Agudo.
say again for acute? What's that?
If we're talking about mastitis, aguda.
Aguda. All right. Subclinical,
Subclínica.
subclínica.
Ujú.
And then clinical would just be clínica.
Clínica.
And chronic, you said crónica, right?
Crónica.
Yeah.
Ujú.
Is my accent getting any better?
It is
All
actually.
right.
Yeah, yeah, it is getting better. I guess you are using the words more often.
Yeah.
Some of the words, yeah, you can tell.
Sorry
Yeah.
for my shameless plug for validation. Our listeners might remember that one of my fears is sounding like a Karen, and so I've been trying to
You're
get my
working
mouth to
on
make Spanish shapes instead of English shapes, and it takes
it. Yeah.
practice, but I'm trying.
it-
All right, we have so this article from El Ligero kind of talks about some of these. It specifically focused on the contagious versus environmental bacteria. And so there's a table here. I'll share it for those of you who are watching on YouTube. If you are not, This is again in the show notes, so you can check it out. But if you are driving or operating equipment, please practice good seguridad, safety, and just don't read this article while you're driving. That's all I ask. But so it breaks it down for contagious versus environmental bacteria. And I usually talk about, this is maybe just a personal preference. I usually talk about contagious versus environmental mastitis. And we were chatting beforehand, and I said, okay, so what I call, if it's bacterias ambientales for environmental bacteria, would I just say mastitis ambientales for environmental mastitis? And you said no. You said I had to use a lot more words than that. So you, I have noticed, especially in our silage episode, Encelado, in English, we love to shorten words together and just just combine a bunch of words into one. And Spanish, you just love to like tack more words on, it seems like. So
it's very descriptive.
Yes.
Very descriptive. Yeah.
Maybe not as lazy as us English speakers. So you said no, I would not say mastitis ambientales for environmental mastitis. I would say mastitis de bacterias ambientales, right? Is that what?
O mastitis por bacterias ambientales.
So mastitis by environmental bacteria, basically. Yes.
Yeah.
And would it be the same for contagious? Mastitis por bacterias contagiosas?
Yes, that would be a term that it will be easily understandable.
All right. And we're not going to spend a ton of time going through this, all of the differences between the two. Again, I encourage folks to check this out if they want more details. But on the bottom here, it's talking about preventing and controlling transmission. And they talk about the 5-point mastitis plan. And don't be too impressed that I have the Spanish version up and I'm reading that. So it's implementar el plan de control de mastitis de 5 puntos. I did read the English version first, so I knew what it said already.
I can see that.
Yes.
Because I can barely see.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to zoom in.
I can zoom in.
Yes. But yes, it's I've got this in presentation mode, so you don't see all the tabs I have open on my computer at the same time and all the bookmarks on my Chrome screen. But anyway, the 5-point mastitis plan. This first one there, desinfección de pezones después del ordeño. So después del ordeño is after milking, right?
After milking, yes.
Desinfección, disinfect. Pezones. What is pezones?
Well, pezones, nipple, or in this case, the teat.
The teat. Okay. We also talked about the last time. Tetas is a word that we used last time. Which do you prefer, tetas or pezones?
The correct term would be pezones. That would be the correct term. But it's colloquially tetas is used more because colloquially, right? So
I think I can remember tetas more. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the people would refer to like tetas, which is fine.
Yeah. So disinfect the teats after milking. So post-dip. We talked sale is the term for dip. So post-sale, post-dip.
Sale.
Yep. So completeness, right? Coverage, that full coverage. It's really easy when you're in a hurry to slap some teat dip on and it may or may not get on the end. And it may or may not fully cover that teat. So that's an important part. So para terapia universal para vacas secas
Mhm.
is the next step in the 5-point mastitis control plan. So terapia universal para vacas secas. I believe that's universal dry cow therapy, if
Yes.
I remember
Mhm.
right.
Exactly.
So terapia would be therapy, treatment.
Therapy.
Yep.
Therapy. Yeah.
Vacas secas, dry
Dry
cows.
dry cows. Mhm.
Does secas literally mean dry, or does it just mean not milking? Right?
No, secas mean literally dry.
Okay.
Dry.
All right.
For
So it's a term that
example,
I would also use. Okay.
dry leaves, hojas secas.
Yes.
Yes.
Corn, we talked about in our previous episode a little bit about, well, in a previous episode, we talked about corn silage. So if I say that it's dry, I could say ensilado
Do,
ensilado seca,
if you
seco.
well, if the corn is dry, yes, el maíz
Yes,
está seco, right?
mais this. Okay.
Mhm.
All
Dry
right.
is seco. Mhm. I would say one more thing with the mastitis. The important thing is for employees, you have your pusher, you have the milkers, for them to know there are bacteria who, well, they could be very contagious. Like you have the cases of Staph aureus,
Mm-hmm.
right? Staphylococcus aureo in Spanish. So for some employees, that doesn't make sense if you say, but there are some others like the environmental cases
Mm-hmm.
of mastitis caused by environmental bacteria, like E. coli, for example, right? Or streptococcus. But the thing is for them to understand that cleanliness is important no matter what. No matter
Mm-hmm.
what kind of bacteria is there, because they may not be the ones taking action if you have cows with the staph aureus. Management management is the one that is going to say we need to segregate the pain or we need to
Yeah.
put a leg band on those cows. So employees just need to be aware that cleanliness it's
Mm-hmm.
important to avoid any cases. There are bacteria living there on the
Yeah.
bedding, yes, but there are some others that are really difficult to eradicate and they can pass from cow to cow using dirty equipment, for example.
Yeah. Yes. Cleanliness is next to godliness.
Exactly.
And I think, yeah, that's an important point to drive home everywhere, right? Especially in La Sala de Ordeño, the milking parlor.
En la sala de
Um,
ordeño. Así es.
um,
Cleanliness is limpieza, by the
l-
way.
limpies, lim, because limpiar is to clean, right?
To clean.
Yep. So
Yes.
what did you say cleanliness was?
Limpieza.
Limpieza.
Limpieza, that is cleanliness. See how English is tricky. You say clean, but you don't say cleanliness. You say
Right.
cleanliness.
It's it
I
is
don't know why.
illogical. I don't either.
So I just know.
um, yeah. But let's in the last couple minutes here, let's hit some of these last three steps in the 5-point plan. So tratamiento adecuado de casos clínicos. So
Mhm.
treat adecuado must be adequately or fully
Adequate.
or adequate
Adequate.
adequate treatment of casos clínicos. We already talked about clínico is clinical. So
Mhm.
treatment of clinical cases.
Yes.
Uh, eliminar las vacas con infección crónica y uh okay, I'm just before I get to the after the and so eliminar las vacas con infección crónica is we had talked about
Mhm.
crónica already and I spelled it wrong. I don't know why I thought it would be spelled with ch like
Oh, because in English it is.
yep.
Mhm.
uh but we already talked about infección crónica is chronic infections, so get rid of cows with chronic
Mhm.
infections, don't keep them
Yes.
around.
Don't keep them around. Yes.
Yep. Mantenimiento regular de la máquina de ordeño. And we talked about am I saying that
Máquina.
right? Máquina.
Máquina
Yes. So, mantenimiento regular de la máquina de ordeño.
de ordeño.
Regular maintenance. of the
regular
milking machines.
maintenance, pretty much.
Yes. And we talked about the milking routine earlier and the importance of that milking routine.
This is a very important point because a lot of times you have cases of the filters are dirty or bacteria is pretty high, or you have just mastitis because the cows are not milked properly. But not everything is on the milkers. What about the equipment? If your equipment is not up to par, you are never going to milk those cows properly. You are never going to get the results that you want. So it is very important to regularly check, are the units actually milking? Are the coolers actually cooling? Is, and this is endless, but is the wash cycle reaching temperature? You know, a lot of things. Yeah.
Yes. A lot of things can go wrong when it comes to people and machines and limpieza, cleanliness.
And cleanliness, yes.
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 All right. And again, we could spend a lot of time talking about a lot with mastitis, and we will. We will do more episodes about mastitis and the importance of cleanliness, of maintenance, of training, of all of that. But for now, I think, Miguel, I'm going to let you go. Anybody who wants to look up the resources that we've talked about in this episode, that'll be in the show notes. Just to wrap up, Miguel, how would you summarize our discussion? Does it all come back to limpieza, cleanliness?
I would say limpieza, making sure that not only milkers know what to do and they follow routine, but the equipment is up to par. The other one is employees may not be able to understand the jargon that we are used to, but they need to understand the simple terms, and they need to understand that if they see a cow with mastitis, they can identify it, notify someone, so something is done. I think that is key. Yeah.
All right. Very good. All right. So everyone, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Nos vemos las siguientes semanas. And if you'd like to learn more about what we are doing outside of these podcast episodes, feel free to check out our websites. So Miguel's is optimumdairy.com, and then mine would be the Iowa State Extension Dairy Team's website. That's extension.iastate.edu/dairy team. We also have, again, if you want more of our bilingual milking resources, those are available there. So feel free to check those out. Thank you, Miguel. As always, it was great to talk with you.
This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or combination inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/ext.